Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a sledgehammer to the idea that mental health is just this broken bone you can spot on a neat little x-ray.
Right. So it's so much more complex than that.
Exactly. So today, we're pulling insights directly from Dr. Emma Hepburn's phenomenal book, A Toolkit for Modern Life. And our mission is really to figure out how to practically, and I guess proactively, manage our mental well-being.
And, we need to clarify our parameters right out of the gate here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this isn't an exploration of acute crisis management. We aren't looking at magical elixirs, and we certainly aren't going to peddle toxic positivity that promises endless happiness.
Because that simply doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't.
That.
This is a practical, grounded look at how your mind actually works on a biological and psychological level.
Right. So if you are listening to this while you're, juggling your job, your home life, the endless pinging of group chats.
The modern exhaustion.
Yes, just general modern exhaustion. This is for you. We want to give you a shortcut to understanding your own mind.
Which is so needed right now.
It really is. We're going to break down some highly practical tools, debunk massive myths about what mental health actually is, and give you actionable ways to navigate the curveballs that life inevitably throws at you.
Well, to even begin navigating those curveballs, we really have to dismantle a very pervasive and honestly quite toxic myth in our society.
But the us versus them thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's this us versus them mentality when it comes to mental health. We tend to view it as something that only, other people struggle with.
Right. Or like it's some catastrophic event that we only address reactively.
Yeah, when a crisis hits.
Yeah.
But mental health is a continuum. We are all on it every single day.
Right.
Just like your physical health fluctuates based on a million variables, your mental health fluctuates too.
I mean, just having a human operating system, having a bad mental health day isn't a character flaw any more than like catching a cold is a character flaw.
That's a great way to put it.
But to manage this continuum, we first have to agree on what we are actually managing. Like, what even is the mind?
Because it's not what most people think.
Right. Dr. Hepburn makes a point that completely shifted my perspective on this. The mind isn't just the brain inside your skull.
No, and that is a fundamental misunderstanding most people have. Your brain does not just sit in a dark, silent vault issuing commands.
It's not a boss in an office.
Exactly. The mind is actually a dynamic, interconnected system. She describes it as a three-piece band made up of your brain, your body, and your environment.
I have to bring up a specific analogy from the text because it perfectly captures this.
Oh, the Destiny's Child one.
Yes, because talking about the brain without acknowledging the body and the environment is, well, it's like having Destiny without her child.
Which just doesn't work.
Right. Beyoncé, representing the brain, is undeniably fantastic. She's the powerhouse lead. But the song is fundamentally incomplete without Kelly and Michelle.
You need the full trio.
You need the whole trio to make the music work. It just made so much sense to me.
It is a brilliant visual, and the biological mechanisms behind that trio are fascinating, really.
How so?
Well, your physical state and your external environment actively physically shape the structure and function of your brain. It's a two-way superhighway.
Wow. Okay.
We can look at the field of psychoneuroimmunology. If your environment is filled with chronic stressors.
Like a toxic workplace or something.
Yeah, exactly. A toxic workplace, financial instability. Your brain triggers a constant release of cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Right. And over time, that elevated cortisol physically suppresses your body's immune system.
Oh, wow.
Then your body sends signals back to the brain that it is vulnerable, which alters how your brain perceives future threats. It becomes hypersensitive.
So you literally cannot separate the environment from the physical body or the body from the brain's processing.
No, you can't.
It is one big feedback loop.
Precisely. And to measure where we sit in that feedback loop at any given time, we can use a model she calls the mental health jam jar.
Oh, I love a good visual model. Let's paint the picture for the listener. Imagine a literal glass jam jar. We all have one, but they aren't all the same size and they don't all hold the same things.
Right. The jar gets filled with two categories of items. First, we have vulnerabilities. Think of these as strawberries.
Okay, strawberry.
These are things you often have very little control over. They include your genetic predispositions.
Like a family history of anxiety.
Exactly. Or your social background, early childhood environments, past traumas. These strawberries establish your baseline.
So some people naturally start with a jar that is, I don't know, half full of strawberries, while others might only have a few.
Exactly. And then on top of those strawberries, you add the stressors of daily life, the raspberries.
Okay, so raspberries are the daily stuff.
Right. This could be a massive life event like a divorce, Or it could just be a flat tire on a Tuesday, a looming deadline, a fight with a friend.
And the physical reality of a jar is that it has a fixed volume.
Right. When you keep pouring fruit in, eventually the combination of strawberries and raspberries overflows.
And that overflow point is when we experience clinical distress.
Yes, that is when our mental health noticeably deteriorates.
You know, if I'm visualizing my own jar, and I know I have a fair amount of strawberries already in there just from, well, life experience,
Sure.
it feels a little daunting. The immediate thought is, if my distress happens because the jar overflows and I can't stop the world from throwing raspberries at me.
Are you just doomed to overflow?
Yeah. Am I just doomed?
Not at all, because the glass of the jar isn't totally rigid.
Oh, okay.
We have the ability to physically expand the size of the jar so it can hold more fruit before overflowing.
So making a bigger jar.
Right. We do this by building foundational resilience.
Mm-hmm.
But the methods for doing this aren't exactly glamorous.
They never are.
Yeah. No. They start with the absolute basics of human biology,
Right.
primarily sleep and diet.
Okay, I have to jump in on the sleep point. Because we always hear, get 8 hours of sleep. But the why in this book completely blew my mind.
It's fascinating.
Sleep isn't just your brain resting or powering down like a laptop. It is a highly active biological process. She talks about these things called glial cells,
The glymphatic system, yes.
which basically act like a night shift cleaning crew for your brain.
It's incredible. During the day, as your neurons fire and you process information, your brain naturally produces metabolic waste.
Like cellular trash.
Essentially, yes, cellular debris. When you enter deep sleep, the space between your brain cells actually widens slightly.
Ooh, wait, really? The physical space widens.
It does, and these glial cells pump cerebrospinal fluid through the brain tissue, literally washing away that toxic debris.
That is wild. So if you skip sleep, you are basically firing the cleaning crew.
Exactly.
That debris just sits there, physically gumming up the works,
Right.
which completely explains why we have brain fog or, poor emotional regulation and terrible memory when we are sleep deprived.
The machinery is literally dirty.
Wow. And diet functions on a very similar foundational level, right?
It does. The brain requires an immense amount of energy,
Mm.
mostly glucose.
Right.
It needs that to maintain its complex operations, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, which handles rational thought and emotional control.
This explains a highly relatable scenario for me.
Let's hear it.
Have you ever found yourself lying on the couch in a complete, just analytical spiral? You are questioning every life choice you've ever made.
Oh, definitely.
You're convinced your career is a failure, feeling total existential despair.
Yeah.
And then you eat a sandwich.
And suddenly the world is okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
20 minutes later, you realize your life is actually fine. You were literally just hungry.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
What you are describing is the brain acting as an imperfect, meaning-making machine.
How do you mean?
When your blood sugar drops, your brain registers a physiological deficit. It feels an internal alarm.
Oh, I.
But instead of simply saying, hey, we require calories, the conscious mind tries to assign a complex narrative to that feeling of unease.
Oh, my gosh.
It scans your life, looks at your career, and says, aha, I feel terrible because my job is meaningless.
But it's actually just the blood sugar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You provide the brain with calories, the physiological alarm turns off, and the existential dread just vanishes.
It really humbles you to realize your deepest existential crisis was just a lack of carbohydrates.
It really does.
So sleep and food physically expand the jar, but once our basic biological needs are met, what else expands the glass? How do we build resilience proactively?
The book outlines 5 pillars for this. Connect, be active, be aware, learn, and give.
I want to pause on these because we hear variations of this all the time under the umbrella of self-care.
We do.
And to be honest, modern self-care often feels like a giant marketing gimmick. My Instagram feed tells me that if I buy a $12 lavender bath bomb, I'm practicing self-care.
Right, the commodification of wellness.
Exactly. So how do we differentiate between consumer escapism and actual foundational care that builds these pillars?
That distinction is vital. True foundational care isn't about retreating from the world or buying a product to numb out. It's about actively engaging in behaviors that literally alter your nervous system. Let's take the first pillar, connect.
The opposite of the solo bubble bath.
Precisely. We are pushed toward isolated self-care, but biologically, human beings are wired for collective care.
Meaning what, exactly?
When we connect meaningfully with others, our brains release oxytocin.
Ah, the bonding hormone.
Yes. And oxytocin actively inhibits the release of cortisol, directly calming our physiological stress response. Collective connection regulates your nervous system far more efficiently than isolation ever could.
That makes so much sense. We are social mammals. What about the other pillars? Being active doesn't necessarily mean like training for a marathon, right?
No, not at all. It means finding ways to metabolize the stress hormones floating in your bloodstream.
Metabolize them.
Yeah. When you experience daily stress, your body prepares for physical action that usually never comes because you were just sitting staring at a screen. Movement, even just having a kitchen disco with your kids for 10 minutes, burns off that excess adrenaline and cortisol, bringing your body back to baseline.
And the learn pillar isn't just about reading a textbook. It's about neuroplasticity.
Exactly.
Like by exposing yourself to new ideas, maybe like listening to this deep dive, you are physically forging new neural pathways. You are working out the cellular structure of your brain.
Which leads give.
Yeah.
Which is rooted in what psychologists call the helper's high.
The helper's high.
Doing things for others, volunteering, or simply helping a neighbor. It triggers the release of endorphins and dopamine. Studies show it actively lowers your own blood pressure.
Oh, wow.
You're expanding your jar by engaging outward.
I love the idea of a massive, well-supported jam jar, but I want to pivot to the micro level for a second.
Okay.
Let's say I built a great foundation, I slept well, I ate my sandwich, I've connected with friends, but then I have to face a Tuesday.
The dreaded Tuesday.
I sit down at my desk, there are 40 unread emails, Slack is pinging, the dog is barking, and I get a passive-aggressive text. How do we measure our bandwidth on a day-to-day or even hour-to-hour level?
For that daily micro level, Dr. Hepburn scales down the metaphor from a jam jar to the capacity cup.
The capacity cup.
Think of a standard teacup. This represents your emotional and cognitive capacity for a single day.
And everything we do goes into that teacup. Work tasks, worrying about a doctor's appointment, remembering to buy laundry detergent.
Even good things, like planning a fun birthday party, take up space in the cup.
Right.
We can mentally divide this teacup into 3 zones. Green at the bottom, amber in the middle, and red at the very brim.
Okay.
When your day starts and you are in the green zone, you have plenty of cognitive room. If you knock over a glass of water, you simply wipe it up and move on. It doesn't derail you.
But when you are in the red zone, this is where I had a massive realization reading this book.
The red zone is tough.
Picture this. Your cup is already in the red zone. It is teetering at the absolute brim from work stress and a million tiny tasks.
We've all been there.
You go to the kitchen and you accidentally drop a spoon on the floor. And you absolutely melt down. You snap at your partner, you start crying, and then the guilt hits.
The infamous drop spoon.
Yes, you think, I am a terrible, unhinged person who yells over a dropped spoon.
It is incredibly common, and understanding the biology of the red zone removes that heavy character judgment.
Because it wasn't about the spoon.
Exactly. What happens cognitively when your capacity cup hits the red zone is that your prefrontal cortex, the logical problem-solving part of your brain, essentially goes offline.
It just shuts down.
It yields control. Your amygdala, the threat detection center, takes the wheel. Your thinking literally becomes rigid, binary, and irrational. You do not have the biological resources available to step back and rationally evaluate a drop spoon.
I am so glad to know that. So the goal isn't to be this Zen master who never gets to the red zone, because that's impossible in modern life. The goal is to recognize when the water is creeping into the amber zone before the spill happens.
Like noticing the warning lights flashing on a car's dashboard. Identifying your personal amber zone tells is crucial.
What do those look like?
Well, for some people, it's a physical sensation. They feel their jaw clench, or their shoulders creep up toward their ears, or their breathing becomes very shallow.
No, I definitely get the tight shoulders.
Right. For others, it's behavioral, like suddenly feeling intensely cynical about everyone around them or withdrawing from conversation.
Once you spot those amber signs, you have to deploy action steps. She outlines 3 distinct strategies. Shake it up, say no, and use buoys.
Yes.
Shaking it up means looking at your teacup and literally checking things out. Cancel the non-essential meeting. Decide you are ordering takeout instead of cooking dinner.
Just removing volume from the cup.
Right. Saying no is about acting as a bouncer for your cup, blocking any new demands from entering. But the buoys concept is my favorite.
Buoys are brilliant because they require very little effort. When the water gets choppy, you need small, accessible things to keep you afloat.
We aren't talking about taking a week off work. A buoy can be like drinking a cold glass of water.
Yeah.
It can be stepping outside for 2 minutes just to feel the wind on your face and reset your sensory input. It's a tiny habit that stops the water level from rising.
But inevitably, despite our best efforts, Sometimes we miss the buoy.
The cup overflows.
It does. And when it overflows, it physically manifests as big, messy, tangled emotions. To get out of that state of overwhelm, we have to fundamentally understand what an emotion actually is.
And this is where we get to bust perhaps the biggest myth of all. Emotions are not just all in your head.
Not at all. They are deeply physiological. Your body is a machine constantly striving for balance, a state called homeostasis.
Okay.
It monitors your internal temperature, your heart rate, your energy levels, and sends signals interoceptive data up to your brain.
So the body talks to the brain.
Right. Your brain receives these physical signals, cross-references them with your past experiences and current environment, and assigns a label to them.
And that labels the emotion.
Exactly. That label is what we call an emotion. Emotions are essentially physiological prompts urging you to take an action to restore homeostasis.
So to manage them, the book advocates for something called emotional granulation.
A very powerful tool.
Basically, playing a highly specific game of name that emotion. Instead of saying the vague phrase, I feel bad, you dig deeper.
You have to get specific.
You say, I feel envious, or I feel deeply humiliated, or I feel profoundly discombobulated. By giving it a highly specific, granular name, you create a psychological buffer.
You step outside of the feeling.
Yeah, you observe it as data rather than drowning in it.
And that observation allows you to map out the emotions cycle. Every emotional experience follows a predictable path.
Which is?
It starts with a trigger. That trigger leads to thoughts, which generate the emotion, which creates a body response, which finally results in a behavior.
Let's put this in a very modern context to see how the cycle works.
Okay.
Social media is a perfect example. The trigger. You are lying in bed scrolling Instagram. The thought. Everyone else is hitting their milestones and I am falling behind.
A very common thought.
The emotion. A cocktail of anxiety, envy, and inadequacy. The body response. Your chest gets tight, your stomach churns, your breathing goes shallow.
And the behavior.
You keep doom scrolling, looking for something to make you feel better, which just feeds more triggers into the cycle.
It creates a closed, self-perpetuating loop.
But I want to challenge this cycle for a second. If emotions are just body signals trying to prompt us back to homeostasis,
Yeah.
why do we get stuck in them for days? Like, if I get a vague, mildly critical email on Tuesday, why am I still furious about it on Friday? The physical body should have regulated itself by then, right?
The answer to why we get stuck lies entirely in that final stage of the cycle. Behavior.
The behavior.
We get stuck because of how we choose to respond to the physiological sensation. Our modern instinct is usually to suppress difficult feelings.
Just push them down.
Push them away, ignore them, or try to distract ourselves. But paradoxically, biological research shows that attempting to suppress an emotion actually creates a much greater physiological stress response.
Oh, really?
Yes, the internal pressure builds. The body is sounding an alarm, and you are trying to smother the siren instead of addressing the fire.
Wow. So to avoid getting stuck, Dr. Hepburn says we have to ride the wave instead of fighting the current. She offers 4 specific steps to do this.
The 4 steps are crucial.
First, notice. Where do you physically feel the emotion? Is it a lump in your throat, a knot in your stomach? Second, breathe.
And we should really highlight the mechanics of that breath.
It's not just any breathing, is it?
No. Taking slow, deep breaths, particularly with a longer exhale, actively stimulates the vagus nerve.
And what does that do?
This directly activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode, physiologically forcing your heart rate to slow down.
So you are basically hacking your own biology.
You are.
The third step is allow. Do not judge the feeling, just let it exist in your body. And fourth, remind. Tell yourself that these are just physical sensations, a wave that will crest and eventually wash away.
But, while those steps sound logically simple, allowing an emotion to exist without judgment is profoundly difficult for most of us.
It's incredibly hard.
And that brings us to the quickest way to guarantee you get violently dragged under that wave.
Ah, yes. The shame game. This is a concept that resonated so deeply with me. It's the idea of the second arrow.
The second arrow.
The first arrow is the difficult emotion itself, the organic sadness, anger, or anxiety caused by an event. It hurts, but it's natural.
Right.
The second arrow is the one we shoot at ourselves. It's the shame we heap on top of the emotion.
We completely berate ourselves. We say, why are you so weak? You shouldn't be sad about this. It's not a big deal. Other people have it worse. You are being ridiculous.
It's so cruel. Dr. Hepburn uses a beautiful metaphor here. Telling yourself off for feeling a natural emotion is like telling a bird off for flying.
It's absurd when you put it like that.
Exactly. You are actively shaming your brain for doing exactly what millions of years of evolution designed it to do.
Yes.
When you fire that second arrow, you trigger a perpetual concave mirror of negativity. You feel bad, and then you feel intense shame about feeling bad, and the cycle accelerates to infinity.
It is a vicious, exhausting cycle. To break it, you have to consciously choose your dance partner.
Yes, the spotlight metaphor. Visualize your conscious attention as a bright theatrical spotlight. When those critical, shaming thoughts arise, you don't pretend they aren't there.
Because they are.
You pull them out of the shadows and put them right in the spotlight. You acknowledge them. I see you telling me I'm useless for feeling anxious.
But then you refuse to tango with them.
Right. You say, I see you, but I'm not dancing with you today. Instead, you choose a much more helpful thought to step onto the dance floor with. Like, it is completely normal that I feel overwhelmed given the circumstances.
And nowhere is this reframing more applicable or more necessary than with anxiety.
Anxiety is a big one.
If we look at the biological anatomy of anxiety, it is controlled entirely by the sympathetic nervous system. That is your classic fight, flight, or freeze response.
Okay, the irony of the scientific name sympathetic nervous system is just too good to ignore.
Why is that?
Because I can tell you right now, it does not feel very sympathetic when I am about to give a presentation, and it gives me clammy hands, a racing heart, and a churning stomach.
Right.
It feels like my body is actively sabotaging my career.
It absolutely feels like sabotage in a modern context. But if we view this through the lens of evolutionary biology, the system is being incredibly sympathetic to your survival.
How so?
Your brain perceives the audience staring at you as a lethal threat. It thinks you are about to be eaten.
Oh my gosh.
So it rapidly pumps you full of adrenaline and cortisol. It redirects blood flow away from your digestive system, which is why your stomach churns and pushes it into your large muscles so you can sprint away or fight for your life.
That explains so much.
It makes your hands sweat to cool your body down during the anticipated physical exertion. It is desperately trying to keep you alive.
So it's basically a highly trained, massively overeager bodyguard that doesn't understand the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a PowerPoint presentation.
Exactly. It only becomes detrimental when it overpredicts threats on a long-term basis.
Like firing at shadows.
Right. If that bodyguard is always firing its weapon at shadows, you become constantly exhausted. But if we can stop shaming our brain's intense attempts to protect us.
If we can just say, I know you're giving me adrenaline to help, but we are actually safe in this boardroom.
Yes, we can start using our emotions as valuable data rather than treating them as enemies.
So, as we wrap up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? How do we pull all of these moving parts together? Expanding the jam jar, monitoring the capacity cup, throwing out buoys, riding the wave.
Dropping the second arrow.
Right. It all culminates in a framework she calls the values signpost.
Imagine you're faced with a difficult decision, or you find yourself stuck in a tangled emotional reaction. Visualize a literal signpost with two arrows pointing in opposite directions.
Okay, two arrows.
One arrow points toward your core values, the fundamental things that make your unique life meaningful, whether that's deep connection, creativity, stability, or adventure. The other arrow points away from them.
Got it. And you use your granular emotions and your deep understanding of your capacity cup to actively steer your life toward that first arrow.
Exactly.
Like if doom scrolling pushes you away from your value of connection and drains your capacity cup into the red zone, you recognize the physical signals.
You drop the shame.
You drop the shame and you put the phone down. You are using these tools to actively architect a life that actually looks and feels like you.
Because managing your mind is not some trivial side quest.
Yeah.
It is the central engine of your personal story.
Yeah.
With these tools, you are no longer just reacting blindly to the pressures of modern life. You are equipped to navigate them proactively.
It is an incredibly empowering shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And it brings us full circle to that X-ray machine we discussed at the very beginning.
We don't need the X-ray.
No, we don't need a perfectly clear black and white image of exactly what is going on in our synapses at every single second.
Yeah.
We just need a reliable, practical toolkit to help us navigate the murky waters when we inevitably find ourselves swimming in them.
Because the waters will always get murky eventually. The raspberries will keep falling. That is just the reality of being human.
Which is why we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you step back into your day.
A little homework.
Yeah. The next time you feel a sudden, intense surge of a so-called negative emotion, be it anxiety, frustration, or sadness, what if, instead of instantly trying to fix it, suppress it, or shame yourself for feeling it, you
Hmm.
just paused?
Just stop, pause.
What if you took one slow breath and actually said thank you to your brain for working so hard to protect you? How might that simple, radical act of gratitude completely change your emotional tango?
It is a profound question to carry with you.
Something to mull over as you navigate your own jam jar this week? We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.